Have you heard of this saying before? Either fail to plan, plan to fail. If you've heard this before, what do you think about it? Is this a true statement? Does it really validate your success or your failures in life? Good evening, everyone. My name is Darius Okumbi, and this is Financial Clinic. At Financial Clinic, we move people from financial chaos to financial stability. If you're here and you're confused about your finances, we'll make this concept very easy for you to understand and to execute. All right, it's good to have you here. Today, I'm going to be talking about budgeting. I know it's something that you have heard. Oh, I mean, maybe over time and maybe you have tried, but it really didn't look like it worked for you. What about we talk about budgeting that works? But before you understand or try to understand the concept called budgeting, you need to understand what a plan is. Okay? Because a budget is a type of a plan, but let's just talk generally about plans. All right? So a plan is something that you anticipate maybe to do because you want to solve a certain problem, then you go for a plan. You have to plan ahead of that thing. So I checked the etymology meaning of a plan, and then it says a plan is a representation of anything drawn on a plane, a representation of anything drawn on a plane. Well, of course, this is an old English, but it always takes us back to the origin. Because today, a plan as plans have gone beyond something that is being drawn, just like an architectural drawing. That is what a plan is meant to be. Today, humans have evolved, and then we no longer do everything by having to draw it, but or having to write it down. But there are certain things that you cannot plan without documenting. Our plans are ways by which we solve problems. So today, we have different types of problems, three types of problems, but I'm going to talk about only two types of problems. The first I'm going to talk about is simple problems. Simple problems are problems in which you're used to solving. Okay, like you have the problem of hunger. You don't need anybody to tell you to go and eat. You don't need to draft and say, okay, oh, so draw the picture of the food, draw the picture of where you are going to go and eat the food, and all that and all that. You don't need to do that already. These are problems that people have solved over time, and by default everyone seems to know how to solve that problem. In fact, those that do not know have been held by the hand and taken to destinations to solve this problem. For instance, you're going from your house maybe to the next bus stop, you necessarily don't need to document because it is a simple problem. Okay? So, but we have another kind of problem, which are complex problems. For complex problems are problems we do not automatically know how to solve. Many times, even for complex problems, we don't have people around us that have solved that problem. So because of this, we need to go through stages to be able to get that problem solved. Let me share a story that's coming to mind. In my former apartment, I my landlord was someone that constructs his building himself. You know, I didn't know until I moved in. Then one of the days in which he had pulled down a structure and then he was rebuilding, I saw him to the um, talking to the artisans and saying, okay, so you can construct the room here. So yes, yes, yes. No, no, change the measurement. So he was saying that kind of thing, and I was wondering, who builds a house like this? No plans, nothing. Okay. So, but after building it, I mean, the thing still looks good. I was like, okay, awesome. Then I heard that it was vacant. Okay. So one of my friends needed an apartment at that time. So I had this conversation. I said, okay, let me see what this apartment is like. So I got his agent and then entered the apartment. When I got into the apartment, something funny happened. Okay, so we saw all the rooms. It was a two-bedroom flat. So all the rooms, and it was kind of cool. But we noticed that there was no kitchen. No kitchen. Can you imagine? How can you build an apartment without a kitchen? I mean, this is not a room and parlor. So the guy, the agent that took us there was now saying, well, if you notice, we have started constructing the kitchen. Actually, we forgot the kitchen, but we are said, I was like, who does this? I didn't even tell anybody about that apartment was vacant. So this is it. That landlord of mine wanted to solve a complex problem in a simple way. Maybe he has been trying it over time and then it looks like it's working. That's one of the mistakes that people make about their businesses too. They feel like, oh, I already got a hang on it. But when it comes to scaling that business, it's very difficult. Why? It's a complex problem. Personal finance, like business, is also a complex problem. Why? Because most times you don't have people around you who have been able to get over the wall of the barricades. And also, it has different parts to it. And it's oftentimes you are not taught how to go about it. So, many complex parts, simple parts, complex parts in personal finance. But the best way to get a hang on your personal finance is by creating the right habits. So, under personal finance, you have things like savings, investing, and investing is one thing that most people that even do it do not understand. And that's why it's easier to fall into the hands of scams. People believe that investing is about, oh, this thing will double your money, this thing will grow your money. Investing is more of adorning you for the future. This is one part that most people do not understand. So, savings, investing, you have income, determining your income growth, financial discipline. You have budgeting, which we are going to be talking about today. So it has too many parts, and most people have not got a hang of it. Many people around you, I mean, your parents didn't. They can tell you how to get from one bus stop to the other, but they cannot tell you how to move from one state to the other. The things you need to do, because most times they are not as educated. So, guys, it is time for you to do these things yourself. And that's why I say this is one first step you're taking for yourself. That is one beautiful thing you have done for yourself. So, I'm glad to have you. Let's get to the topic, budgeting. All right. So, what's budget? A budget is a financial plan that outlines your income and your expense over a period of time. Okay. A budget outlines your income and your expense over a period of time. I've already defined what a plan is. Okay. So, it's more of like looking at what your income is going to be and looking at what your expense is going to be over time. You can prepare a budget for a month, you can prepare a budget for a year, depending on the cost of things and then how you automatically adjust things to fit into that. Okay. So before I go ahead into this, I'm going to share two thoughts. The first thought is this is that he that plan for the money controls the money. He who plans for the money controls the money. Why do I say this? I say this because most times when people get their salaries, it does not enter the next month. Sorry, next month. Yeah, maybe next month. It doesn't enter the next month. Sometimes it spends only 10 days and then they are barely groping through. Some people only have the money that they have um, earmarked for their transportation ready. So but many people control your expense. Many people control your spending. Many people control your money. And that's why. you need to do something about it. How do people control your money? Do you know that the color of signages, the color of pictures, and all that in adverts were actually meant to draw your attention and distract you from other things so that something out there is calling you saying, come, 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 come and spend the money. You see, these days, most times, most of the adverts will do things like very colorful things that will make you look like, wow. Have you ever seen food in a Maggie in a Maggie advert? It looks like this is just what I'm looking for. And many times the same thing, the adverts were designed to control your spending. These people have a plan for you. They've done the math and say, okay, if we have 1,000 people walk into this store today, and then they begin to look for how to get 1,000 people get into it. And voila, you walk into it. Another thing is this. Let's say you go to a store these days. I mean, people go to stores, but I see that most people don't bring children. But and that's because most times children control your spending. So they begin to do point and kill when you enter um, that mall. So people avoid them going in there. So they control your spending. Has this ever happened to you? Maybe there is this one person that you know that maybe an aunt or uncle, probably in the village, and then this person always calls when you have just received salary or when money comes into your hands. And then maybe the first month the guy calls you and say, "Oh, grandma swallowed pin. Oh, we need to conduct a surgery for her and all that and all that." And the next thing is you dig your hand into your purse and then you send the money. At least you will not watch grandma die. The next month, the now says, your siblings have not eaten for the past 3 days. In fact, they are almost dying the next month, around the same time. Has this ever happened to you? The third month, and then it keeps going on and on and on like that. That is because these people already planned and factored you into their expense. You are the one that did not factor them into, factor your own finances into your expense. You're not controlling your finances. Most people are doing that for you. So in this case, what can you do? How then do you ensure that you are in control of your money? You need to plan for your finances. And that's what we are talking about today in budgeting. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 4 parts of budgeting that you must consider. 4 parts. So if you're able to do these 4 things, it will help you plan and maximize your budget well. So when you want to make a budget, the first thing is to identify the elements of your budget. Identify the elements of your budget. Yeah. So already in the definition, we've talked about there is a financial plan that outlines your income and your expense. Income is the money that comes into your pocket, right? So income is the first element, expense is the second element. Income is that money that comes into your pocket, okay, that belongs to you. Because the one that doesn't belong to you is not your income, right? So you have things like salary, like wages, things like commissions, gifts. These are forms of income. So anytime you get an income, it should be part of your budget, or what you are expecting to receive in the next month should be part of your budget. And that is why tracking is important, especially for those who do not have a stable salary. Maybe you're in business. You should track so that you can understand what your average income is and then factor it into your budget. Well, it's always best that people do not continue earning the same amount, but look for how to add to their earnings. And that's because of the financial realities today. Talking about adding to your earnings, we're going to talk about that some other days, but it is something you want to put behind your, but somewhere. behind your mind. Yeah, it might be find ways to earn commissions or do a gig or something. It's very important that you have another source of income because the rate of growth of expenses is spiraling every day and looks like nobody is doing anything to stop it. Yeah, so your income is very important and must be accounted for. It is a disservice to you if you have only one entry as your income and then have 1,000 entry. Well, that's exaggerating. And have tens of entries as your expense. What if you can work around this such that you have one, you have two income lines for yourself? So let's get talking about where the issue is. The biggest issue, the biggest elephant in the room is your expense. All right. So what's the expense? The money that leaves your pocket. The money you spend is your expense. All right. So there are three elements in your expense. And these three elements are the major parts of your budget. So you have your needs, you have your wants, and you have your savings or investment. Your needs, your wants, your savings or investment. All right, so let's get cracking on this. What is need or what is your need? We recently held some free financial coaching, and if you're here, you have not joined or enjoyed our free financial coaching, we are going to drop a link in the description for you to register and be part of the next free financial coaching. The free financial coaching has helped many people. In fact, many of them were oblivious of what the actual problem in their finances were, but were able to decipher it through that process of coaching. So you have a problem and you don't know where it is in your finances. It looks like something creeps into your money and then eats it all up. The free financial coaching is going to help you with that. So, but if you do not see a link, just comment and say, I want to join the free financial coaching. And we're going to do that for you. Our free financial coaching is a personalized coaching. So it's not like you have a crowd there, it's one on one. So during the last financial coaching, we were, during the interview, someone was saying that, oh, the reason she has issues is because her needs were numerous. Then when we began to drill down, we find out that her needs were not the problem, but her wants. Wants. It's not like she's not earning enough to sustain herself, but it's the wants. That is why understanding what the needs are is very important. So, what are needs? Needs are those things you cannot survive without. Okay? Those things you cannot live without. Those things that are essential to your living. Those are needs. If you take those things away, something happens to your life. Those are needs. So let's go over a couple of them. Your needs includes food, clothing, shelter. Well, it doesn't stop there. Because also these days, clothing most times has gone beyond needs to want. So somebody's having is having a party and then you have to be there. You have to, now say, I need to buy Ashrebi, but that is not it. You actually want to buy it because without it, you will still be clothed. Other parts of your needs, which were not involved, which were not added to the things that we learned in school, but our civilization has made them become needs. Here are a couple of them. Number one, education. Education is a need. So someone somewhere is saying, but we have many billionaires that dropped out of school. Yes, school, like I always say, is not the same thing as education. Education is what you do for yourself. It's the understanding, the wisdom that you dig into for yourself. While school is for the public. It's a general knowledge space. Education is what has been drilled down for your own understanding. So education is a need. Communication is also a need in our modern world. Communication. I always say that you cannot survive in this world, you cannot thrive in our current world without data. Communication is another one. Another one is transportation. Okay. Once you begin to earn, you begin to need transportation. Even before you earn, because children going to schools need transportation. Even if they have to do it with their leg, they need the aid for transportation, which may also be their shoes, their sandals. All right. So these are things that you must take into consideration. These are needs. I know, and the last one I'll talk about is healthcare. You can't survive without health. If you, I mean, your health is the only valid reason you're here, right? And you can listen, you can function, you can take a transportation, you can think about food, you can think about money. Health. So another line in expense is your wants. These are things you can live or thrive without, right? They are things you can live or you can thrive without. So your wants may include, oh, I need a massage. I want a massage. Okay. I need to do something about my hobby. I need a PS5. Those are wants. They are things you can do without. And you must also budget for this. Yeah, eating out is another one. Oh, I want to eat out. That's also a want. But it's not bad for you to be there. I mean, enjoy your money too. All right. So the last segment is your savings and your investment. As important, I mean, your needs are important, but also is your investment because investment is a vehicle into your future. Um, Talking about investment, the etymology meaning of investment means to clothe, to adorn you for for royalty. And that's where people miss it. So some people will say, oh, I did an investment and it failed. An investment is meant to clothe you and not to rip off your clothes. So you actually did this thing called investment, and then your mind is telling you that you know how these things ends, right? You know that not everybody will survive it. You know it's about the fastest. You know it's about that means what you did is not an investment but a Ponzi. So people think that, oh, it's cool. I mean, it's okay, but you just did a Ponzi. But something in you is telling you that this thing, if you cast, that's not an investment. Right? Investment is something that can adorn you for the future. Most times, investment has been tested, trusted, tested, and trusted over time. Yeah. So that's investment. Savings is supposed to be a no-brainer. Every human on earth should have an emergency fund. Okay, so that's the first thing you do. You identify the elements in your budget. The second thing you do is to determine the type of budget you want. Determine the type of budget you want. Okay, so I'm going to give you four types of budgets. And if you have seen it anywhere, let me know. Except for one, you would have seen somewhere. But there are four types of budget. Before I go into the types of budgets, I'm going to read a place in the book of Proverbs, chapter 21, verse 5. I'm going to read it in the NLT. It says, good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts leads to poverty. Good planning and hard work leads to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts leads to poverty. I'm going to read it in the King James too. It says, the plans of the diligent leads to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. Hmm, interesting. One plans, the other is hasty. So, where are you? That's what we are going to be talking about in these types of budget. The first type of budget I'm going to talk about is the poverty budget. To know that sometimes people budget for poverty because no plan is a plan. However, it is a plan to fail. No plan is a plan, but it is a plan to fail. So those that use the poverty budget are the people in the second part of the scripture that says that The hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. These are people that immediately they receive their money, they don't have any restraint, they just spend. That spirit comes to them and says, spend the money, spend the money. Money na water, money. Yes, you are earning 50K. Money na water, you just spend. So that is the poverty budget. And some would say things like, oh, the money is not enough. Last week I had a conversation with someone and then she was like, oh, the money is not enough. So part of what we do in our coaching session is I gave her a compulsive spending test. And guess what happened? She failed the test, meaning that she didn't earn so well. She wasn't earning up to 100K, but she spent compulsively. She just spent the money. Most people that execute the poverty budget do not have a distinction between um, needs and wants. They don't even know it exists or they don't think about it. They feel, okay, I'm just walking by. Today we're doing a calculation. We say, okay, you take a bottle of Coke every day, 500 naira. I don't know how much it is in your area, but 500 naira around here. Take a bottle of Coke every day, 500 naira. And maybe you're earning 50K. You don't know that that's 15,000 naira in a month. So out of that 50K, you're left with 35K. So being a compulsive spender has nothing to do with, okay, he has a lot of money. No, it has to do with your daily living. I mean, it has to do with your daily living, your money blueprint, and all that. That's why it is something you want to avoid. Okay, so poverty, hastily spending the money. The money comes in, no distinction between needs and wants, just spends. The second type of budget is what I call the hustler budget. The hustler budget is that budget that saves, say, 10%, 20%, saves a portion of his salary and spends the others without a distinction um, between needs and wants. Just spend. So also could be a compulsive spender without knowing. A compulsive spender is someone that spends without thinking. Maybe on minute things, maybe on very important things, but they just spend without thinking. So, and most times that savings that they have set apart, they eventually use that savings for something they never planned for. Sometimes they use it for something they've planned for. So someone says, okay, I'm just keeping this money for my rent. That's the only savings the person has. Some other person, so there is no investment that goes into the future, nothing to close them in future, and then they just put the money aside in that place. This is another way by which people operate, and this is the hustler type of budget. Just let's say spend 90% or spend 80%. Also, still complaining that the money is not enough, and then eventually the remaining 10 or 20% that they have saved, they say, "Oh, let me use it, let me plow it back into my trade, put it inside the market, and all that." So they really end up not having an investment. This is the hustler type. Well, some others will say, okay, let me buy some stocks. But the day they are in need, they just like lashing on the investment and then everywhere they are back to zero. Right? So that is the second type of budget. The third type of budget is the promising budget. Now, the promising budget is a budget you see everywhere, the 50-30-20 rule, the 50-20-30 rule, the 70-20-10, and all that. What is this jargon about? The 50-20-30 rule means that you are spending 50% on your needs and then 20% on your wants and then 30% into savings and investing. Or maybe you could juggle the 20 and the 30. So you have 50% in your needs, you have 30% in your wants, and then 20% in your savings or investment. This is what most people try to do that set budget. And it looks like, oh, um, I'm the bomb because you have been able to do this. This is a beautiful one and very important, a very important way to start the journey to budgeting. But let me talk about the last one, which is the visionary budget. So until you can take that promising budget to visionary budget, you are not yet as safe, because the visionary budget is where you are comfortable, where things really work better for you, where your investment begins to pay your bills. Can you just imagine that your investments are paying your bills? You want to pay house rent, there is one investment that pays it, your children's school fees, one investment pays it, your feeding and all that, the next car you're buying is a return on investment. Can you just imagine having that kind of experience? That is the visionary budget, where 100% of the income goes into investment, and then it in return pays your bills, makes you live a comfortable life. You can decide, oh, I'm going to Dubai today. It returns on investment. You know, one of the mistakes most people do, especially in the hustler, even some people in the promising budget, one of the mistakes they make is to spend those savings on vacation and those things. But best that you work towards the visionary budget. If you want to know how to translate from the promising budget to the visionary budget, you can join our Millionaire Inner Circle, where we teach these things, and such that even if you're not there yet, you know that that is your future. All right. So that's the second thing. The first thing I said you should do when it comes to budgeting is what? The first thing is that you identify the elements of your budget. The second thing is that you determine, okay, based on your income, you determine the type of budget you are going to execute or going to use. Then the third thing you do is, now that you have determined the type of budget you want to use, the next thing you should do is to prepare your budget. Go ahead and prepare the budget, right? It's time for you to do the writing, to categorize, okay, these are my needs, and then this is the amount, put the needs or the wants against the amount, your savings against the amount. And after that, the last thing you should do is to implement the budget. Now, at the beginning of this session, I said that I asked a question, say, have you heard this statement that says, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail? The truth is, even with a plan, 88% of people that even make New Year resolutions, for instance, fail at achieving those resolutions. In fact, the data also says that 60 to 90% of companies that set up strategies at the beginning of the year are not able to achieve it. And that is because of this last point, implementation. Until you make it work, it does not work. If you don't make it work, it doesn't work. And that's why you should do everything you can to make a budget work. One of the things that can help you when it comes to making a budget work is to, for instance, say that, okay, I'm going to remove or automate the withdrawal or the debit of my savings. Yeah, you want to automate the debit of your savings or your investment. So if you're using the 50-30-20 rule, for instance, 20% is automated. Or the first thing you do when that money comes into your account is to transfer it. Automation works better. So you automate some of those things. Automate your several bills that you have to pay such that it's an auto debit. When you're able to do this, maybe at the end of everything, you are left with the money that goes for your wants. So anyhow you want to spend it, it's yours. So implementing is important. Another thing that can help you in implementing is to have an accountability partner. Well, there are people you can talk to, but except the person is also not a beneficiary of your spending. Because that's another one. If the guy is a beneficiary, it will make it difficult for you to execute. Yeah, because he now knows what you save and all that. There are people you cannot really tell what's going on in your finances. You see, while we had coaching sessions, in fact, we had a private coaching session with one person, a millionaire in our circle, and One thing he said was this: he said he has never discussed about his finances with anyone. And the way that we made it possible for him to do that brought a lot of relief and possibilities into his life. So, guys, this is where I'm going to drop the ball. I hope you've learned a couple of things, and I hope this is something you want to execute. I need you to do something for me. Ensure that if you have come this far, you have a reason to like this post. So why not go ahead and like, subscribe to our channel. We are going to be here live next week, Thursday also, teaching you something about your finances. Until then, I remain Darius Okunbi, your financial clarity coach. Do have a pleasant, long holiday if you're in Nigeria. And if you're not, well, enjoy work tomorrow. Bye.